Yes. The salary of doctors in the country has continued its recent steep rise, according to a new study, marking the highest increase rate in the world.
네, 첫 번째 헤드라인인데요. 국내 의사들의 소득이 최근 계속해서 가파르게 증가해 전 세계 1위 수준의 증가세를 기록했다는 조사 결과가 나왔습니다. Tell us more, Juyeon.
Yes. So compared to other occupations like lawyers, physician business income has grown more than 4 times faster over the past 7 years. And this is the highest growth rate among OECD members, and which is actually the highest in the world.
Wow.
Yes. So according to the National Tax Service and related authorities, the average income of medical professionals, this includes doctors, traditional medicine doctors, as well as dentists. And it was 269 million won in 2021. So this was actually a while back. So this probably has increased over the couple of years. And this was also average. So this is the middle point.
Over the past decade or so, we actually used to be number 5 amongst the OECD members. But as you said, now we're number 1. A big increase indeed. I think over the past 7 years, there's been a 4-fold increase.
That's right.
Not a 4-fold increase, but 4 times,
4 times.
the speed
Yes, that's
in which this has risen. Now, let's look at some of the main expressions. We're looking at, of course, the salary of physicians or doctors.
Yeah.
Salary.
So salary is what you get for every month. So you can also call it an income, monthly salary, an annual salary. Sometimes I think in the United States you have a weekly salary too.
Yeah.
Or you can have a bi-weekly. So like every 2 weeks you would get your salary. But in Korea, it's more that you get actually every month or so on the 25th. Yes.
네, 날짜는 뭐 좀 상이할 수는 있겠지만 보통 우리가 이제 월급을 받잖아요. 그때 monthly salary라고 표현을 할 수 있고 monthly income도 가능하지만 salary라는 표현을 많이 씁니다. 또 이제 1년 동안 버는 돈 같은 경우에는 영어로 yearly salary 아니면 annual salary 이렇게 표현을 많이 하고요. 특히 미국에서는 1, 2주마다 한 번씩 돈을 받는 직업들이 많기 때문에 그때는 weekly salary나 bi-weekly salary라고 표현을 하겠습니다. S-A-L-A-R-Y. Not to be confused with celery.
Yes.
Which is very delicious if you
Celery.
dip it in mayonnaise.
That's right. Or just alone or as a juice. I love it.
Celery juice.
Yes.
그때 그 채소 샐러리는 C로 시작하죠.
That's right.
C-E-L-E-R-Y. 네,
So
이렇게 씁니다.
it's celery and this is salary.
Yes. Give us the example sentence you've brought.
Yes, I haven't had a salary increase since I started working there.
네, 거기서 일을 시작한 이후로 지금까지 한 번도 봉급 인상이 된 적이 없어 라는 얘기였고요. 그 다음에는 이제 많이 오른다는 뜻의 steep rise를 보겠습니다.
That's right. If you say that something is steep, you might call a mountain or a hill very steep, and or you can say that it's a steep uphill battle or a steep uphill climb, saying that you have to climb up stairs or a mountain, but it's very, like the angle of the rise is very steep.
Exactly. S-T-E-E-P, S-T-E-E-P인데요. 가파르다라는 뜻이 있죠. 그래서 우리가 산행을 할 때라든지 계단을 오를 때 steep 하면은 상당히 올라가기가 힘들 텐데요. rise라는 건 여기서는 increase라는 뜻으로 가파른 증가가 되겠습니다. Let me read this headline one more time. The salary of doctors in the country has continued its recent steep rise, according to a new study, marking the highest increase rate in the world. Moving on, this is our second headline.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has declared the nation has embarked on the second stage of its war in Gaza as its troops waged ground operations in the besieged territory.
베냐민 네타냐후 이스라엘 총리는 포위된 가자 지구에서 이스라엘 군이 지상작전을 벌이면서 팔레스타인 무장정파 하마스와의 전쟁이 두 번째 단계에 진입했다고 선언했습니다. 그래서 이제 지상 작전이 ground operations가 되겠죠. Tell us about this.
So he has warned his people that they need to expect a difficult and long campaign.
Yeah.
And that it's the second war of independence. And the ultimate goal is to destroy Hamas's governing and military capabilities and also to bring their hostages home.
And many hostages have, of course, been taken right from the get-go.
That's right.
Women, children, a lot of civilians. 그래요. 이제 지금 현재 하마스가 잡고 있는 여러 인질들을 구출하는 것이 하나의 목적이 되기도 하겠고 그 다음에는 pretty much the dissolution of Hamas.
That's
right.
Yes.
네, 하마스를 어떻게 보면은 이제 없애는 것이 하나의 또 다른 큰 목적이 될 수도 있을 텐데요. This war, I think we can call it that now.
We can.
It's yeah, it is getting more and more prolonged, and people are saying it's going to be, as you said, a long fight, and a very difficult fight.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be something where, you know, Hamas can gain much from it.
No, exactly not. Actually, it used to be an attack from the Hamas side to Israel. Now it is a war declared from the Israel side. And now, before declaring this kind of full-fledged ground operations, the Israeli military had knocked down nearly all communications in Gaza. They had been stopped supplying water, energy, food, electricity.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, there's not much to gain from this. However,
Except
they're
for
continuing on. Yeah.
people talking about them
Yes.
and the
Attention from the
yeah,
international
exactly.
community.
I guess maybe awareness
Yes.
could be something that they could gain from it. But the people, of course, the Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip have already been stripped of everything they need.
That's right.
Pretty much. And now a lot of Israelis being there as well, held hostage.
Yes.
Israel wants them back and this war to end. Let's have a look at the main expressions. To embark on something.
Yes, if you embark on something, you usually start something, but it's more of a project or a long campaign. So it's actually going with gusto, with
Yeah.
actual, if you start something like your own little project, you wouldn't really say, oh, I'm going to embark on my next diet. Unless it's going to be full-fledged and it's
Okay.
going to be very big.
Right.
You usually say, oh, we're embarking on this new adventure for the next decade.
Yeah.
Something like that. Something a bit more grandiose.
If I were to start having my breakfast, I wouldn't say I'm going to embark on it.
No. Unless it's going to be a very long breakfast.
자, 그래서 embark가 시작하다의 의미가 있긴 하지만요. 보통의 그 시작하는 건 아니고 좀 거창한 의미로 뭔가 착수하다 정도의 느낌으로 보면 될 것 같습니다.
Yes.
Your example is?
After quitting her job at the large law firm, she embarked on a new career in nonprofits.
네. 그 대형 법무법인에서 일을 그만둔 이후 그녀는 이제 새로운 일을 시작했는데 여기서 시작하다 했지만 좀 거창한 느낌이 있어요. 그래서 비영리 재단에서 새로운 일을 커리어를 시작했다. 그래서 해석을 할 때는 시작하다라고 할 수는 있지만 일반적인 시작은 아니라는 거, 이 느낌을 아시면 될 것 같고요. Besieged territory 볼까요?
Yes, if you are in a besieged whatever, if it besieged something, it means that you are surrounded with armed forces. So you're kind of in the middle or in the center, and all around you, you have armed forces.
Right. Besieged. 라는 게 포위됐다라는 의미고 territory는 영토니까요. 이렇게 포위된 땅을 얘기하고 있는 겁니다. Of course, the besieged territory in this case would be the Gaza Strip.
That's right.
Here it is one more time. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has declared the nation has embarked on the second stage of its war in Gaza as its troops waged ground operations in the besieged territory.
A pilot program that has made 5 bus routes free, aiming to expand access to public transportation across the city.
미국 뉴욕시가 대중교통 이용 확대를 위해 5개 버스 노선을 무료로 운행하는 시범 프로그램을 시작해 운영하고 있습니다. All right, so tell us what's happening in New York then.
Yes, so this is actually quite good news for people taking
Commuters,
public transportation, because if you go to New York, there's not that many. Well, there's a lot of cars, but in fact, if you ask the person next to you, the majority of people would say that they either take the bus or the subway to work. So this is actually good news for them. So the New York State Governor, Kathy Hochul, and the state legislature required the MTA to launch the program as part of the state budget. This was actually approved back in May. And the legislation came after transit advocates lobbied for free bus services as a way to make this kind of mass transit more accessible for low-income New Yorkers.
And when you think of New York, you think of, the money-making companies and
Yes,
the people there
definitely.
and everything. And to have free transportation
Oh, yes,
is really
definitely.
interesting.
The prices in New York are actually skyrocketing, and if you think about how they have to pay for everything and then taxes on top of that, well, I mean, of course, everyone pays taxes, but in the United States, it's kind of an add-on to the consumer prices that you see.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a big burden for a lot of people living in the city, and so that's why there's not a lot of people actually living in the city. They live outside of the city and commute into the city.
And as you said, people working in New York say it doesn't make a lot of sense to drive in New York.
Yes.
Because the traffic congestion is so bad.
Exactly.
You're probably not going to get to point A or point B wherever you're going in time if you drive.
That's right.
So it's much better to use public transportation.
And no parking
No,
either.
yeah, exactly. So this is going to be beneficial not only for the users of the buses, but also for the environment as well.
That's right. So definitely, this will hopefully better the carbon emissions for the entire city as well. So the routes were chosen based on ridership, how many people actually ride on these routes, the fare evasion, service adequacy, and then equity for low-income and economically disadvantaged communities. So the overall routes and access to employment and commercial activity.
Right. I understand the fare for buses
Yes.
is roughly around $4. But now, you're going to be able to get on some free buses, at least for now.
Yes, think about $4 and the conversion into Korean won.
그러니까 우리 돈으로 한 4,000원
That's more,
정도였다고
actually.
하더라고요.
Yeah,
예,
5,000,
정확하진
6,000,
않지만, 네. 근데 그거를 이제 지금 일단은
Yeah.
파일럿 프로그램을 통해서 무료 버스라고 명시가 된 경우 무료로 탈 수 있게 되니까 경제적인 효과도 물론 있겠지만
Definitely.
환경에도 좋고요. 네, 표현 보겠습니다. This is going to be a pilot program that's
Yes.
run.
So a pilot program itself is a program that is being operated by either a government or a company to test out a program that they have. So if they want to spread this out citywide, they still have to try it out on a trial basis. So that's why it's a pilot program.
Right.
You'll see this often.
Yep.
And for the verb, you can use operate too, but you usually use run a pilot program. So if you see pilot program, you just immediately attach run.
And the example that always comes to my mind when I hear pilot program is the sitcom Friends.
Oh, yes,
know,
that's right.
It went on for 10 years. It was a huge success. But of course, right at the start,
Yeah.
no one knew how it was going to go.
That's
so they had a
right.
pilot program. And then ever since that, the rest is
10
history.
years.
But then in relation to that particular
Yes.
sitcom, of course, we have some very sad news that came
Definitely.
in. Chandler
weekend.
Bing, Matthew Perry, sadly passed away recently.
Yeah.
So we do send our condolences
We
and
do.
Our deepest regrets.
He was my favorite character
Me
among
too.
the three male characters, but rest in peace.
네, rest in peace indeed. 자, 이 파일럿 프로그램, TV 프로 특히 이제 시트콤이나 드라마 시리즈 같은 경우에 처음부터 다 제작을 하는 게 아니고요. 이제 그 시범 프로그램을 하나 먼저 내보내고 반응을 보면서 약간 tweaking,
Yeah.
살짝 수정을 할 수도 있고 아니면 그냥 취소할 수도 있어요.
That's right.
반응 안 좋으면 네, 그런 것들이 파일럿 프로그램 TV에서 말하는 것이고 자, 여기서는 이제 버스 운영이니까요. 버스를 시범적으로 이렇게 무료 운행을 좀 하겠다. 그리고 run이라는 것이 우리가 달리기뿐만 아니라 운영하다라는 뜻이 있습니다.
Yeah.
The next expression is access to something.
Yes. If you have access to something, that it means that you can actually see something, or you can go into something. You can have your hands you can get your hands on something if it's actually something physical. So it means that you can approach something as if you are allowed to.
Yeah. access는 접근이라는 뜻이 있는데 무엇에 대한 접근할 때는 access to something이라고
That's right.
합니다. 예문은요?
Yes. So once you've signed the NDA, the non-disclosure agreement, we will give you access to our files.
그럼 NDA라는 게 뭐 비공개 약정서 같은 거죠. 그래서 NDA에 일단 사인을 하면은 우리 파일 접근하실 수 있습니다. 이 말은 이제 이 파일 보실 수 있습니다라는 뜻이 되겠죠. You'll have access to the files.
Yeah.
다시 읽어보겠습니다. The city of New York has been running a pilot program that's made 5 bus routes free, aiming to expand access to public transportation across the city. And let's move on to
Climate activists have vandalized the Louvre Museum by throwing orange paint over its iconic glass pyramid as they demanded a nationwide plan for the thermal insulation of buildings from the French government.
기후 활동가들이 프랑스 정부의 건물 단열 시스템 마련을 위한 국가 차원의 대책을 촉구하며 루브르 박물관의 상징인 유리 피라미드에 주황색 페인트를 뿌리는 시위를 벌였습니다. Okay, well, first of all, it's very eye-catching, but I don't know if it's for the right reasons.
Exactly.
Tell us what's going on.
Yeah. Well, what they are actually trying to do is that they are making a statement, right? So the footage was revealed on how an activist or a protester is on top of the Louvre pyramid and he splashes all this orange paint and it scatters all across the structure. I'm very saddened by it because you will know that it's a very beautiful monument, but the activists threw balloons filled with paint on the glass and metal structure as well. This footage was shared on X, which was formerly Twitter, and it was a group of climate activists. They're actually demanding this nationwide plan for thermal insulation of buildings from the French government. Mind you, France was actually rebuilt on the French Revolution. So it's quite common for a lot of this activism and sit-ins or revolutions or activists protesting across the city. But this was actually a very blatant expression on a piece of artwork.
Exactly. 건물의 에너지 효율을 높여달라. 거기에 정부가 충분히 노력을 지금 안 하고 있다라는 취지로 지금 이렇게 시위를 한 건데요. 루브르 박물관 입구에 보면은 이게 유리로 된 피라미드, 아마 사진으로 또 뭐 직접 가신 분들도 많이 아실 겁니다. 거기에다가 이제 주황색 페인트를 이렇게 뿌려서 다른 건 몰라도 이걸 치우는 데는 또 많은 에너지를 써야 될 것 같긴
I'm sure, yes.
합니다. 자, 표현 볼게요.
Yeah.
Vandalize something.
Yes, if you vandalize something, you're actually ruining or destroying something that's actually public property. So exactly what they did, the activists threw orange paint. To get that off, you're going to have to use paint thinner, and that's actually going to destroy the glass as well as the metal, and it's going to take a long time to get off, as well as a lot of energy.
What's your example sentence?
The thieves broke all the windows and vandalized his car with spray paint.
네, 도둑이 창문을 다 깨고 그 다음에는 스프레이 페인트를 차량에다가 다 뿌려가지고 이제 차량을 파손한 거죠. 그래서 공공기물 파손이라는 뜻이 있는데 그래서 어떤 물건을 파손했을 때 특히 건물을 보통 얘기를 많이
Yes,
합니다만 여기서
that's
이제
right.
차량 얘기하셨고요. 네, 그때 vandalize something이라고 합니다. 공공기물 파손죄는 vandalism이 되겠죠.
Yes.
자, 그다음에는 thermal insulation.
That's right. If you talk about thermal insulation, it's more about padding a building so that it actually doesn't have to use a lot of energy, but it can keep you warm or cold during the seasons when it's cold or hot outside.
네, 단열 얘기를 할 때 thermal이라고 얘기할 수도 있겠고 insulation도 쓸 수 있는데 둘 다 나와 있습니다. thermal insulation이 되겠어요. 자, 그러면은 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Climate activists have vandalized the Louvre Museum by throwing orange paint over its iconic glass pyramid as they demanded a nationwide plan for the thermal insulation of buildings from the French government. Now let's move on to the final headline.
Farmer in Ulsan has unearthed a sweet potato root with more than 70 bulbs, a rare discovery considering that on average, a root produces up to 25 bulbs at a time.
울산의 한 농부가 고구마 70여 개가 달린 뿌리를 캐내 화제가 되고 있습니다. 보통 한 뿌리에 최대 25개까지 달리는 걸 고려하면 이는 매우 희귀한 사례입니다. 얼마나 놀랬겠어요. 정말 한 20개 정도의 고구마가 달려있겠지 했는데 70여 개가 달려있는
Definitely.
그 뿌리를 캐내서 정말 횡재했다. 이런 기분도 좀 들었을 것 같고.
Pulling out, rows and rows of sweet potatoes. So hopefully it has been a bit profitable for him. But yeah, the bulbs actually were about the size of an adult's palm. So actually they're quite big as well.
보통 우리가 bulb라고 하면은 이제 핵심 표현이기도 한데요. light bulb,
Yes.
그러면 전구라는 뜻이죠. 그래서 그런 모양새를 하고 있는 꽃봉울이나 아니면 여기서는 이제 식물이 되겠습니다. 그래서 고구마를 하나하나의 bulb라고 보고 있는 것이고
That's right.
one root had 70 something bulbs. Wow.
Huge too.
Yeah.
So he actually said that usually there's about 5 to 8 sweet potatoes on a single root. At most 20 to 25,
Right.
even if it's the maximum number. And then he said, I've never seen so many in my life.
네, 평생 처음이야.
Yeah.
이렇게 얘기를 하셨죠.
And an expert also confirmed that it's very rare to have so many, sweet potato bulbs to be attached to one single root.
네. 그 울산에서 이 특이한 고구마를 캐낸 분은 85세의 송정조 님이
Yes, I
되겠습니다.
know. And he said that it's the first time in his life, so, 85 years.
자, 표현 볼게요.
Yeah.
캐내다, to unearth.
I mean, it's very nice, isn't it? Unearth. So you're actually digging up something, but rather than say dig up, you can say unearth. Like wiping off all of the earth from the bulb. You can also say exhume for certain situations, but that's more like a body. When you've actually, put a body in a casket and then you put it down in a grave, but for some reason you have to dig it back up.
Right.
You call it, you exhume the body.
Exhume, with an H there.
Yes, that's right.
Excavate is also
that's
similar.
right.
unearth에서 earth는 원래 토양이라는 뜻이 있습니다. 그래서 땅을 un한다. 뭔가 이제 안 한다 아니면 뭐 되돌린다 이런 뜻이 있죠. un이 붙으면은. 그래서 땅이 가만히 있었는데 그거를 이제 뒤집고 캐고
That's right.
파고 이런 행위를 unearthing 한다. 그래서 한 단어로 이렇게 동사로 씁니다.
Yeah.
예문을 하나 주시죠. 비유적으로
Yeah.
unearth 쓸 수도 있죠.
That's right. I brought in more. It's not so direct, so I'm not unearthing any sweet potatoes, but the Secret Service unearthed a plot to kill the president.
아, 그래요. 여기서 Secret Service라고 하면은 뭐 정보원이나 정보국을 말할 텐데
Yeah.
그런 데서 대통령을 예, 예문이 굉장히 무섭네요.
Yes, well,
대통령
yeah,
암살 계획을
This is fiction,
네,
so
네,
yes.
네, 네. 그것을 찾아냈다, 발견했다라는
Yeah.
뜻으로 unearth라고 할 수 있겠습니다. 예문입니다, 여러분. 자, 그 다음에는 bulb라는 거 아까 우리가 얘기를 했는데요. 전구도 bulb예요. 그러니까 이렇게 볼록하게 생긴 모양을 일단 생각하시면 되고, 식물이나 아니면은 꽃도 우리가 bulb라는 표현을 가끔 쓰는데 그런
right.
이렇게 그 동그란 모양의 뭐 알뿌리가 될 수도 있고 꽃 봉오리도 될 수 있는 것 같아요. Please tell me if I'm wrong because,
No, because
I'm not a
tulip
horticulture
bulbs.
expert. Yes,
Yes.
thank you. 네, 그런 의미가 되겠습니다. B-U-L-B, bulb. 자, 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. A farmer in Ulsan has unearthed a sweet potato root with more than 70 bulbs, a rare discovery considering that, on average, a root produces up to 25 bulbs at a time. Okay, and Paul.
South Korea is seeing a widening gap in its gross national income per capita with the world's 7 major economies, according to the central bank, on the back of the weakening Korean won and slow economic growth.
한국은행에 따르면 원화 약세와 성장 부진에 따라 우리나라 1인당 국민소득과 주요 7개국의 격차가 갈수록 벌어지고 있는 것으로 나타났습니다. Tell us more, Paul.
Yes, so yesterday the Bank of Korea released this data for Korea's gross national income per capita using the World Bank's latest measurements for 2022, and it is $35,990. The issue is it's lower than the G7 countries. If you look at the lowest in the G7, Italy had the lowest per capita at just under 37,000, but that's still $1,700 more than South Korea. The thing is, 2 years before that, in 2020, our GNI, our gross national income per capita, was actually above Italy's by $610. It was the first time Korea had ranked and recorded such a feat. However, Italy caught up the next year by over $1,000. So we're seeing the issues being the weakening Korean won, the differences in economic growth, and, Korea is certainly down on the numbers, but who knows what will happen in the next year.
여기서 GNI, Gross National Income이 국민 총소득이죠. 특히 gross라는 단어가 경제에서 굉장히 많이 쓰이니까요. 총액을 말한다라는 거. 그런데 이제 갈수록 이 격차가 커지고 있다. G7 국가들과 이런 얘기를 해주셨습니다. Well, look at the expressions now. And so South Korea is seeing a widening gap.
Yes. So a gap is a space between two things.
Yeah.
I think of the gap between the sofa and the wall, where sometimes I accidentally drop pens or coins or other things.
Okay.
Sometimes my cats hide there too.
Uh-huh.
So it's some kind of space between two things. And if it's widening, it's getting wider. It's getting bigger. The distance between these two things is lengthening.
I think of the gap between the platform and the tube track.
Yes, in London,
yeah.
we talk about that subway track and the platform and the famous expression that you'll hear as the train doors open, mind the gap, mind the gap.
그렇죠. 자, 어떤 틈이라는 뜻으로 영국의 튜브 타보신 분들은 아마 이 안내방송 많이 들어보셨을 것 같아요. 그래서 플랫폼과 그 다음에는 철로 사이에 이 간격이 있으니 조심해라 라는 뜻으로 mind the gap 이렇게 얘기를 하고요. 그다음에 뭔가 이렇게 뭐 아까 소파와 그다음에 뭐 다른 가구 사이에 틈이 있을 때도 gap가 있다 이렇게 말할 수 있고요. 만약에 그 치아가 좀 벌어졌다. 그러면은 이제 치아 사이에도 gap가 있다. 틈이 있다. 이렇게 얘기할 수 있습니다. A widening gap 점점 벌어지는 그런 이제 차이가 될 텐데요. We're looking at GNI, of course, the gross national income. And some of the reasons, it says here, would be the Korean won, which is weakening in value, and also economic growth, which is slowing. And the expression used is?
On the back of this happening. So if something happens on the back of something, it's happening after it and often due to it. It's going to be a contributing cause. So why are we seeing this widening gap? We're seeing it because of the weakening Korean won and slow economic growth in Korea.
네, 무엇의 결과로라고 할 때 on the back of something 이렇게 얘기를 많이 합니다. 이게 시간 순서상 on the back of A 하면 A가 먼저 일어났고요. 그 다음에 이제 다른 일이 있었다라는 뜻인데 이렇게 원인이 될 때도 있고 아니면은 이제 시간 순서상 이렇게 됐다라고만 볼 수도 있겠죠.
Yeah, for me, the image that comes into my head when I think of on the back is two people leapfrogging. So you have one person who bends over and the other
Yeah.
person jumps over them, pushing their hands on their back and going further forward. So the idea that we have one thing occurs so that something else will then occur after it.
I forgot what that is in Korean. 이렇게 누군가 한 명이 허리를 굽히고 그 다음에 위에서 누가 이렇게 손 올려가지고 탁 이렇게 점프하는 거 있잖아요. 그거를 지금 이제 연상하신다고 선생님이 설명을 해주셨어요. 그래서 on the back of this person이 되겠죠. In
네.
this case. 그래요. 뭐 누군가의 등을 이제 짚고 점프하는 그런 이미지도 연상할 수 있겠네요. 예문 주시죠.
We got the new contract on the back of the success of the last project. The reason we got it was because we did so well.
지난번 프로젝트가 굉장히 성황리에 마치게 됐는데 그 성공한 이후에 이제 새로운 계약을 맺게 됐다. 그래서 어떻게 보면은 그 성공 때문에 또 이제 다시 계약을 하게 됐다라고 볼 수도 있겠고요. 두 가지 해석이 다 가능할 것 같습니다.
Yes, and I think we have a translation for leapfrog as well.
등 짚고 뛰어넘기 놀이. 이렇게 부르나요? 단어가 하나 있을 줄 알았더니.
This is the strange thing about comparing languages. Sometimes Korean has a very short word for a very
네.
long expression in English. Sometimes it's the other way around.
그게 없나? 예, 알겠습니다. Okay. 자, 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. South Korea is seeing a widening gap in its gross national income per capita with the world's 7 major economies, according to the central bank, on the back of the weakening Korean won and slow economic growth.
Lee has revealed that a significant increase in the economic participation of women in their 30s since the 2010s can be attributed to the growing number of women choosing to delay childbirth or remain childless.
국내 30대 여성의 경제활동 참가가 2010년대 이후 대폭 증가한 데는 자녀를 갖지 않거나 자녀를 갖는 시기를 미루는 여성들이 늘어난 게 이유일 수 있다는 분석이 나왔습니다. Okay, so demographics.
Yes, and demographics from the Korea Development Institute. They released this report yesterday, and we're seeing this decline of women with children in their 30s, but at the same time we're seeing this inverse increase in employment figures for that same group of women. However, it should be said that child rearing is still a major influence. There has been a significant improvement in the balance of work and family, but we're still seeing that as being a major factor. So that demographic is still lower than the number of men at that age working and women in other groups, but it has risen sharply since 2010, and it's also surpassed women aged 40 to 64. And the gap is narrowing with men, especially men in their 30s. So we're seeing more women working, but we're seeing less women having children in their 30s.
And there does seem to be an influence. One seems to be affecting the other, obviously.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. More women are perhaps choosing or staying in work to, I don't know, further their career, or they enjoy working, or they're not getting married, but they're not having children.
네. 그러니까 이제 아이를 출산하지 않거나 아니면은 좀 미루는 경향들이 많이 늘어난 것과 동시에 또 30대 여성의 경제 활동이 많이 늘어난 것을 같이 볼 수 있어요. 그래서 아까 선생님이 쓰신 표현이 There's been an inverse increase in the number of women in their 30s who now work, and there's been a decrease in women who have children. So of course there does seem to be a very close relation to those two stats there. 자, 그러면 표현을 보도록 하겠습니다. 경제 활동을 하는 여성 할 때요. In the economic participation of women이라고 했습니다.
Yes, if you are involved in economic participation, you are participating in the economy. Meaning you're working. You're part of the economy. You're part of the working population.
participation이 참여 아니면 참가가 될 텐데요. economic participation이니까 경제적으로 뭔가 참여하다 경제 활동이 되겠습니다. 자, economic participation of men, of women.
Yes, of us this morning. We're indulging in economic participation right now. We get paid to be on the radio.
그렇습니다. And there's a growing number of women choosing to delay childbirth.
Yes, if we delay something, be it childbirth or anything, it means we put it off, we postpone it. We don't do it when we perhaps thought we were going to do it. We're saving it for another time.
Yeah.
For example, I like to delay my donut until 3 o'clock in the afternoon
Why?
instead of having it in the morning, because that way there's the pleasure of the wait for that sweet treat.
Fair enough. At the airport, you may have heard this flight has been delayed.
Yes, the other day on Sunday, I was coming back up from Daegu and my train was delayed by 3 minutes.
I see. delay. 네, 뭔가 연착이 되거나 늦어질 때, 미뤄질 때 많이 쓰는 표현이기도 하죠. 자녀를 갖는 것을 미룰 때도 delay having children or delay childbirth 이렇게 쓸 수 있겠고요. 선생님, 예문은요?
I think we need to delay the start of the egg and spoon race. Sue forgot the eggs.
This is a very British thing, I feel like. I don't know if they do it in America as well. Maybe they do.
Yes, but certainly when we were kids, I am sure at school you participated in a number of egg and spoon races.
Yes, absolutely. Sports Day, 운동회 할 때요. 영국에서 어릴 때 저희가 이제 숟가락에다가 날계란을 올려놓고 그거를 이제 밸런싱하면서 걸어가는 이런 레이스도 있었어요.
네.
그래서 자칫 잘못하면 이게 떨어져서 깨지니까 아주 조심해야 되는 거죠.
We would use boiled eggs.
boiled eggs였나요?
Yeah, because then they
오래돼서-
would get eaten afterwards.
그랬겠네요. 저도 또 오래돼서 잘 기억이 안 나는데. So not raw eggs.
No, boiled eggs, I think is the
알겠습니다.
usual one. I mean,
삶은 달걀로.
raw eggs adds an extra little bit of danger to it, I
Yeah,
suppose. But
yeah.
boiled eggs are tastier, I think.
Yeah, come to think of it, there were so many interesting things, races on Sports Day. My favourite was the slow bike race. Did you ever do that?
Yes, I was never very good at it. The one that I would do around this time of year for Halloween and Guy Fawkes is bobbing for apples.
Okay.
Which is where you have a big bucket of water and apples floating in it, and children would put
Yeah.
their hands behind their backs and try and bite an apple and pick it up.
Right.
I don't know whether people still do that, but when I was a kid, it was very popular.
Indeed, very difficult game that one. 제가 가장 기억에 남는 레이스는 우리나라에서는 못 본 것 같은데요. 느리게 자전거 타기 달리기예요. 그런데 이 레이스 같은 경우에는 넘어지면 안 되고요. 두발 자전거를 타는 건데 가장 천천히 넘어지지 않은 상태로 결승선을 넘는 사람이 우승자예요.
Yeah, the trick is to turn left, then right, then
네.
left, then right, then left.
저는 이게 이 삶을 사는 방식에 대해서도 참 시사하는 바가 많다라는 생각이 들거든요. 꼭 1등을 하는 제일 먼저 들어가는 사람이 1등이 아니라 가장 마지막에 넘어지지 않고 꾸준히 가는 사람이 이긴다는 거. 기억에 남습니다.
Follow the advice of the turtle. Slow and steady wins the race.
네, 딜레이 얘기하다 보니까 이런 체육 관련된 스포츠 데이 얘기도 많이 하게 됐네요. 다시 읽어보겠습니다. A new study has revealed that a significant increase in the economic participation of women in their 30s since the 2010s can be attributed to the growing number of women choosing to delay childbirth or remain childless.
K-pop boy band 17 has set a new milestone for first week album sales, with their latest album 17th Heaven selling over 5 million copies in its debut week.
K-pop 그룹 세븐틴의 최신 앨범 17th Heaven이 발매 첫 주에 500만 장 이상 판매되면서 이 부문 신기록을 세웠습니다. First of all, congratulations to 17.
It's quite astonishing. It's their 11th EP, and it sold 5,090,000 units in the first 7 days of its release. This comes from chart data, and it's the first K-pop album to actually do this in its debut week.
It's quite a feat then.
Yes, and also, just like movies, that first week is a really important measure of how popular an artist or a group can be and how big their fandom is.
Yeah.
So this is basically saying 17 are big, are very, very big in terms of sales. I mean, their combined domestic album sales reached 11 million copies in the first 9 months of this year. They're not doing too badly.
Doing very well, in fact. Okay, well, the first expression is to set a new milestone.
Yes, meaning you've broken a record or you've done something that you've never done before, or maybe that no one has ever done before. Like, for example, so you must have hosted hundreds, if not thousands, of episodes of Morning Special.
Possibly.
Yeah, I think you, for example, when you hosted your 1000th episode, you would have set a new milestone. That would have been a big moment in your career as a host because you're like, I've reached this many.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and count. Set a milestone. 이 자체가 어떤 기록을 세웠다라는 의미로 볼 수 있겠죠. 새로운 한 획을 그은 거니까요.
네.
그래서 it's set a record라고도 볼 수 있습니다. And your example is?
I plan to set a new milestone by being the first person to walk on Mars.
화성에 처음으로 걷는 인간이 되겠어. 그래서 내가 새로운 기록을 하나 세우겠어.
Yeah, maybe I'll even do a
정말요?
slow bike race.
자, 그 다음에 debut week 보겠습니다.
Yeah, it means your start, your beginning. So the debut week for a single, for an album, for a movie, for whatever it may be. And I think it's good to point out the spelling here, D-A-B-U-T, because it comes from the French, like buffet. We pronounce it debut.
Yeah.
I think in the United States they might say debut.
Really?
I'm not sure. Maybe they don't. I have a feeling I've heard slightly different pronunciations
Well, I
for
know
debut.
for sure how it's pronounced in Korea.
How is it pronounced?
데뷔.
Debut.
근데 그거 아니고요. 이제 영어식으로 할 때는 debut 이렇게 발음을 하고요. 나 아까 뷔페 말씀도 하셨는데
네.
뷔페 영어식으로 하면은
Buffet.
buffet. 네, 이렇게 발음을 합니다. 자, 그래서 이 데뷔 첫 주라는 뜻으로 debut week라고 얘기를 합니다. 다시 읽어볼게요. The K-pop boy band 17 has set a new milestone for first week album sales, with their latest album, 17th Heaven, selling over 5 million copies in its debut week.
According to a New York Times report citing UN forecasts, by 2050, 1 in 4 people on the planet will be African, as the continent's population is expected to nearly double to 2.5 billion over the next quarter century.
뉴욕타임스가 UN 통계를 인용해 낸 기사에 따르면 아프리카 대륙의 인구가 향후 25년간 2배 가까이 증가해 25억 명에 이를 것이며 이에 따라 2050년에는 전 세계 인구 4명 중 1명이 아프리카인일 것으로 전망됐습니다. Okay, so this is contrary to a lot of developed countries
Yes.
where they're seeing a decrease in population.
Yes, and an aging population.
Yes.
And it's these two factors we're seeing very differently in Africa. So if we go back to 1950, the data that we have shows that Africans, people born in Africa, living in Africa, made up just 8% of the world's people. 100 years later in 2050, they will make up 25%, 1/4 of human beings, and at least 1/3 of all young people, aged between 15 to 24, they will be Africans.
That's a huge leap.
Yes, but we're seeing signs of it already. If we look at the median age, the United States is 38 and China is 38. In India, which has the most people, the most populous country, it's 28. The median age in Africa on the continent is 19.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, lots and lots of young people. And
Making lots of double takes today.
we are, yes. So we're seeing this incredible, extraordinary bursting growth of population as countries like Korea and elsewhere are seeing declines. So that means Africa is going to become central to all sorts of pressing concerns, whether we're talking climate change or energy transition or migration. The world is becoming African. Well, we all came from Africa in the first place, so it's interesting that we're going to see this big growth coming in the near future.
네, 1950년 아프리카 대륙 그 인구를 봤을 때 전 세계의 8%밖에 되지 않았는데요. 100년 후인 2050년이 되면은 전 세계 인구의 4분의 1이 아프리카 대륙 사람일 것이다. 이런 얘기를 해주셨고 그 이유는 지금 일단은 평균 연령대가 워낙 아프리카가 낮고요. 인구도 계속 증가하고 있는 추세이기 때문이다. 그러면서 there's a stark contrast between these other countries and the African continent. 예를 들자면은 미국 같은 경우에는 전체 인구를 이렇게 놓고 봤을 때 중간 정도 되는 연령이 몇 살이냐? 38세래요. 근데 아프리카 대륙에서는 지금 19세랍니다. 그만큼 평균 연령이 굉장히 낮은 거죠. It's a very young continent.
It is, and it's going to continue to be younger than everywhere else.
와우. 자, 표현 보겠습니다. Forecast.
Well, the word forecast we use when we are predicting something, but it's when we also using data. For example, I can't forecast the weather. I can guess what the weather might be like, but I can't tell you accurately. Whereas I have an app on my phone that will accurately predict the weather. It will give me the weather forecast. It will rain at 2 p.m. The sun will shine at 3. The sun will set at 6:22. Things like that. Yeah, we forecast, we predict what's going to happen.
forecast 하다라고 하면은 예측하다, 예상하다가 되겠고요. 동사로 썼을 경우 그렇죠. 명사일 때는 예측, 예상 이런 뜻인데 일기예보 같은 경우에도 weather forecast라고 합니다. 자, 그다음에 expected to nearly double.
Yes, if something nearly doubles, it grows by almost twice its size. So if something was 10 of whatever, if it nearly doubles, it's probably going to be 19, not quite 20. So yes, if the population is going to nearly double, there'll be almost twice as many people as there were before.
네, 2배 가까이 오를 것으로 예상이 된다. expected to nearly double. 예문 주시죠.
My yearly bonus is expected to double according to my boss. PD님 맞아요? PD님?
상사에 따르면은 연봉이 한 2배 정도 오를 거래요. 라고 지금 선생님이 얘기해 주셨습니다. 네, PD님이 웃고 계십니다. 자, 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. According to a New York Times report citing UN forecasts, by 2050, 1 in 4 people on the planet will be African, as the continent's population is expected to nearly double to 2.5 billion over the next quarter century. Let's move on to the final headline.
Korean short track speed skater Kim Gon-woo has secured a gold medal at the 2023-2024 ISU Short Track World Cup in Montreal, Canada, marking his second victory in the World Cup series.
쇼트트랙 국가대표 김건우 선수가 캐나다 몬트리올에서 열린 2023-2024 ISU 쇼트트랙 월드컵 2차 대회에서 우승하면서 1차 대회에 이어 연속 금메달을 획득했습니다. Tell us more.
It was a big weekend for Korea. If we look at the second individual 1,500 meter final, we had Kim Gon-woo taking gold. Park Ji-won took home silver, but Kim also took home the gold in the men's 1,000 meter race. And in the women's 1,000 meters, we had So Hee-min winning her first individual gold medal, and she also won the gold in the women's 3,000 meter relay. It's been a great success when it comes to skating for Korea this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's look at this expression here, to secure something.
Yes, to secure something, well, you need to make it safe.
Yeah.
But we use it when we're going to make sure something happens. For example, to secure victory. I'm sure that there are football coaches, soccer coaches around the world who are talking to their teams in this week saying, we've got to secure a victory against our opponents this week. We've got to win, win, win.
secure라는 동사가 여기서는요. 무언가 확보하다 아니면은 획득하다라는 뜻으로 쓰였습니다. Could you give us an example here?
Sue, the only way to secure victory is through proper preparation.
제대로 준비를 하는 것만이 확실히 성공을 거두는, 확보하는 방법이다 하셨고요.
This goes out to all the high school kids who have to take Sunung this year.
Yes.
If you're properly prepared, you can do it. Victory is yours.
We're talking about victory. To mark one's second victory. What's
Yes, if we're marking something, we're noting it, we're celebrating it, we're saying, look at me, look at this, look at whatever it may be. It's done, or I did it, or we did it, and in this case, Kim did it.
Marking something is used a lot in the news because it
Yes.
means that this has been recorded, this is the outcome,
Yes,
this is what
this
it
has been
signifies.
celebrated or
Yeah,
commemorated.
yeah.
There are all sorts of things like we mark the birth of famous people long gone. The birth of Shakespeare is marked every year. The death of Shakespeare is marked every year.
무언가를 기록하다 아니면 기념하다의 의미로 쓰기도 하고요. 뉴스에서 특히 정말 많이 나옵니다. 그래서 something, it marks the first time, the second time that this has happened. 이런 식으로 쓸
Yes.
수도 있겠고요.
Mark Sue's words carefully.
Mark my words. 네, 제 얘기를 명심하세요 라는 뜻으로도 쓸 수 있습니다. Mark his second victory라는 것은 두 번째 승리를 이제 기록하게 됐다, 거두게 됐다 이 뜻이죠. 다시 읽어보겠습니다. Korean short track speed skater Kim Gon-woo has secured a gold medal at the 2023-2024 ISU Short Track World Cup in Montreal, Canada, marking his second victory in the World Cup series. 지금까지 뉴스캐스터 폴 매튜스와 함께한 헤드라인즈였습니다.
Korea's industrial output rose for the second consecutive month in September on the back of a turnaround in the semiconductor sector, while retail sales and facility investment also logged year-on-year growth.
반도체 부문 성적이 호전됨에 힘입어 9월 우리나라 전산업 생산이 2달 연속으로 증가했습니다. 소비와 투자도 전년 대비 성장을 기록한 것으로 나타났습니다. Give us the details.
Right. So it's the first time since May that the country reported an increase in the three major indicators on industrial activities, and they're for the service sector, retail sales, and facility investment. And they say the industrial output, it went up by 1.1% on month in September, following a 2% on month gain in August. And this is all because of the growth in the chip industry or the semiconductor industry.
반도체 산업을 chip industry라고 하기도 하고 semiconductor industry라고 하죠.
Right.
Let's look at the expressions here. It says it was on the back of a turnaround.
Right, turnaround. So we use this when there's sort of an abrupt or unexpected change, especially one that results in a more favorable situation. So in this case, you know, the semiconductor industry or the chip industry, maybe it was lagging behind. It wasn't doing so well, but now it's made a turnaround and it's doing much better. So we would use that expression in that sort of situation.
네, turnaround가 이렇게 몸을 돌린다는 뜻도 있을 수 있죠. 그래서 그런 것처럼 호전이 됐다라는 의미로 여기서는 썼고요. And to log something.
Right. Just very simply, it means to keep a record of something, but it's usually used when it's a systematic recording of something. So of events, observations, or maybe measurements when it's recorded. So for example, the company logged 2-digit growth in sales this year.
아, 올해 그 기업은 영업이익이 two-digit growth니까요. 이게 두 단위수로 네, 그런 성장세를 기록했다라는 얘기인데 뭔가 기록하다, to log라고 합니다. L-O-G. Here it is one more time. Korea's industrial output rose for the second consecutive month in September on the back of a turnaround in the semiconductor sector, while retail sales and facility investment also logged year-on-year growth. Now let's move on to the second headline.
The prices of soju and beer are set to increase this month due to a rise in manufacturing costs, making it no longer feasible to keep prices unchanged.
네, 제조비 상승으로 인해 주류 가격 인상을 더 이상 미룰 수 없게 된 업체들이 소주와 맥주 가격을 이번 달부터 올릴 예정이라고 발표했습니다. So the government had actually tried to coax the manufacturers and say, don't rise the prices yet.
Yeah.
But, well,
it's because, you know, soju is considered the 국민 drink, you know, it's the national, it's where people turn to when they're having a hard day, when they're going through difficulties. So I think that's why they try to, you know, don't raise it too much.
Right.
But they've already gone through a price hike earlier this year, I think in February. So this will be the second hike. And it's going to go up pretty considerably, about 7% starting this month. On the 6th, I believe, they will be raising the prices.
네, 뭐 그 6일이라고 하셨는데 아마 한 11월 9일쯤이라는 보도도 있습니다.
Yeah,
그 즈음에서
sometime around early this month, they are
네,
going
네.
to start raising the prices. It's probably going to be different from company to company. But I think one major company did say that they're going to try to minimize the impact of the price hike as much as they can.
Right.
They're going to supply a lot of, sufficient quantities of these beverages to their business partners until the time of the price hike so that, you know, they can secure the inventory so people can buy them at the current price before the prices go up. And, it's all because of the rising prices of everything these days. You know, prices have been going up. I think we talked about the rising olive oil prices last week, but everything's been going up. They say malt prices have been going up, which is affecting beer. We mentioned how ethanol prices have been going up. There's also been a jump in the bottle prices as well. So that's affecting everything. So that's why they're saying it's no longer feasible to keep the prices unchanged.
Right. 원가 상승으로 인해서 사실 진작에 주류 가격을 올리고 싶었던 업체들인데요. 정부가 그동안에는 만류를 했고 좀 올리지 말아라. Don't raise the prices. 이렇게 얘기를 했었기 때문에 거기에 따라서 좀 올리지는 않았었지만 이번에는 불가피하다라는 입장입니다. 자, 표현 볼게요. The first one we have here is manufacturing costs.
Right, manufacturing. Manufacturing, we talk about the manufacturing industry as well, but it's basically the process of transforming these raw materials. In this case, we talked about ethanol, we talked about malt. We're transforming them into finished goods. So here it would be soju or beer through the use of tools, machine, and labor. And of course, cost would be the amount that has to be paid or spent to buy or obtain something.
manufacturing cost는 제조비가 되겠고요. 그런 제조비가 많이 올랐기 때문에라고 했습니다. 보통 우리가 이 rise하고 raise를 놓고 헷갈릴 수가 있는데요. raise와 rise 동사일 때 raise는 올리는 거고 rise는 그냥 오르는 겁니다. 네, 그러니까 누군가가 끌어올리느냐 아니면 알아서 오르느냐 이 차이가 있을 수 있고요. 명사일 때는 raise 그러면은 많은 분들이 원하는 거죠.
Yes.
봉급 인상이라는 뜻이 있고요. 명사 rise 같은 경우에는 그냥 증가라는 뜻이 있습니다. 자, there's a rise in manufacturing costs. 그래서 제조비 증가로 인해서 더 이상 동결시킬 수 없다.
Right.
그래서 raise 해야 된다 prices를
Yes.
이런 얘기를 하고 있는 거고요. It's no longer feasible to keep prices unchanged.
Right. So feasible. If something is feasible, it means it's possible to do easily or conveniently. So I'm going to make an example sentence with not feasible.
Okay.
The plan did not seem feasible at the time, but somehow we made it work.
그때 당시에 그 계획이 실현 가능성이 없어 보였는데 그런데 여차여차해서 우리가 실현을 했다,
Yes.
해냈다 이런 의미가 되겠죠. feasible이라는 게 실현 가능하다라는 뜻이 있습니다. 그래서 우리말로는 이 소주와 맥주 가격 인상을 더 이상 미룰 수 없다라고 했지만 이거를 말 그대로 영어로 바꾸기보다는 조금 의역을 해가지고요.
Yeah.
Keep prices unchanged.
Right.
가격을 동결시키는 것을 유지하는 것이 더 이상 실현 가능성이 없다.
Yeah.
이렇게 조금 다르게
Right.
표현을 하면 되겠습니다. 자연스럽게 들리니까요. Well, here it is one more time. The prices of soju and beer are set to increase this month due to a rise in manufacturing costs, making it no longer feasible to keep prices unchanged. And those were our first two headlines. Let's take a break.
Korea's tax revenue fell some 50 trillion won during the first 9 months of 2023 from a year earlier, due mainly to weak corporate activities and the prolonged slump in the property market.
기업 실적 부진과 부동산 시장 침체 장기화로 올해 9월까지 거친 국세 수입이 전년 동기 대비 약 50조 원 감소한 것으로 나타났습니다. So let's break this down. What's causing this?
Okay, so as we mentioned, weak corporate activities as well as the prolonged slump in the real estate market. So the tax revenue, it came to 266.6 trillion won during the January to September period, and that was down 16% from the same period last year. And in September alone, the government collected 25 trillion won in taxes. That was down about 12% or 11.7% from a year earlier. And, they're saying it's because of, companies' dwindling earnings and the amount of income tax collected has fallen year on year due to the falling number of home transactions as well. So people are, I guess, refraining from selling their homes in case real estate prices go back up because, like we mentioned, there's been a prolonged slump in the real estate market.
Absolutely. The real estate market는 부동산 시장이고요. Real estate transaction 그러면 부동산 거래인데요. 이런 부동산 거래가 굉장히 많이 줄었기 때문에 그게 한 가지 원인이 될 수도 있겠고 그 다음에는 corporate activities are weak 이런 얘기도 했어요. 그래서 기업 실적이 역시 약해서 올 1월부터 9월까지의 그 거둬들인 국세 수입이 작년 같은 기간에 비해서 한 51조나 적다고 합니다.
It's a lot of money. Yeah.
표현 볼게요. Corporate activities.
Okay, corporate. So corporate means it's related to a corporation, a large company or a group. It's and activities, of course, is something that a person or a group has done or does.
corporate가 기업의라는 뜻이 있어서요. corporate activity는 기업 활동이나 기업 실적이 되겠죠. 이 경우에는요. 그 다음에 slump in the property market라는 표현이 있었습니다.
Yeah, slump. So, we use this for in the, we see this a lot in economic news. So when you're undergoing a sudden or prolonged fall in the price or value or amount, it's a period of time when something is in a bad state. So we say a slump in the economy, a slump in the real estate market. We use this expression a lot. You can also say that you're also having a little slump as well. When you're not, maybe at work, when you're not performing very well, you can say, oh, I'm in a little slump.
나 기분이 너무 안 좋아. 슬럼프인가 봐.
Yeah.
그때도 이 슬럼프예요. 그래서 뭔가가 이렇게 뚝 떨어졌을 때 그게 비단 기분뿐만 아니라 실제로 어떤 수치가 뚝 떨어졌을 때도 씁니다. 그래서 침체라는 의미로 여기서는 쓰였지만 두루두루 알아두시면 되겠고요.
Yes.
What's your example?
The prolonged economic slump has led to millions of people losing their jobs.
경기 침체로 인해서 수백만 명의 사람들이 실직하게 됐다라는 예문입니다. Well, here's the headline one more time. Korea's tax revenue fell some 50 trillion won during the first 9 months of 2023 from a year earlier, due mainly to weak corporate activities and the prolonged slump in the property market.
A new report suggests that going makeup-free for a month can yield multiple benefits, including restoring the skin's oil and moisture balance, reducing wrinkles around the eyes, and minimizing the occurrence of acne.
네, 한 달 동안 화장을 하지 않을 경우 피부의 유수분 밸런스가 회복되고 눈가 주름이 줄어들며 여드름 발생이 최소화하는 등의 다양한 이점이 있다는 보도가 나왔습니다.
This is news that I think cosmetics companies may not want to hear.
I'm looking at your face right now. You look lovely as always. I think
Thank
you're wearing
you.
a tiny bit of makeup.
I am wearing makeup.
I'm wearing none.
So we'll see, your skin oil and moisture balance being restored, and the wrinkles around the eyes. We call them crow's feet because they look like little tiny
crow's feet.
crow's feet.
까마귀의 발이라고
Bird's
얘기를
feet,
하는
yes.
거죠. 예, 눈가 주름을
Yeah.
영어로는 그렇게
Yeah.
표현을 하는데요. 네, 그런 것도 좀 개선이 되고 그다음에는 유수분 밸런스도 회복이 될 수 있고.
So, they're saying basically that your skin naturally has the ability to restore itself. So, actually applying makeup to cover it up, like foundation or mascara, and then the process of removing it as well, may lead to these, side effects, I guess we could call it. The balance being broken, the wrinkles and acne as well. It might be the result of using makeup.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're kind of straining your skin
Yeah.
every day
Yeah.
when you apply makeup, take it off. But then at the same time, it's a part of daily life.
Yeah.
For most people, most females, I suppose.
I think they, I was looking at this article and they cited the survey. It was a U.S. survey, but I think the results might be pretty similar on, if it was conducted here in Korea as well. But they surveyed about 1,200 women or 300 women, and they said that out of these women, about 16% said that they felt that they did not look attractive without makeup on. About 14% said that they didn't feel comfortable if they didn't have makeup on. And then 14% said that they felt naked without it.
그래요. 실제로 이런 설문조사를 해보면은 많은 응답자들이 화장을 하지 않으면 뭔가 굉장히 불안하고 불편하고 마치 옷을 안 입은 것처럼 네, 그렇게 느껴지기까지 한다. 그래서 실제로 이제 많은 여성들을 대상으로 한 설문조사니까 많은 여성들이 화장을 나는 늘 한다라고 얘기를 했는데요. 근데 이렇게 실험을 해보니까 한 달 동안 화장을 안 할 경우 또 이점들이 있을 수가 있네요. 네.
Yeah, I think they also said that it reduces bacterial infections because you're using the same applicator when you're putting on foundation, when you're using the brushes to put on, eyeshadow or blush. You don't wash them as frequently as you should, or you would have to replace them every time you use them.
Yeah, in my case, because I don't apply makeup that often, I've actually found the opposite to be true in some cases where I apply makeup and then I find that I don't touch my face as much because I know I'm conscious of the fact that there's foundation and, and blush and all of that stuff. So my hand goes right next to my cheek and then I go, no.
I need to stop.
Put
it down.
Put it down. So I don't touch my face.
Right.
Whereas I feel like if I have nothing, if it's just bare,
just touch it.
I just touch it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that can lead to more breakouts and more pimples and acne.
Right.
And so it kind of depends.
Yeah.
But this is what this recent study or the report says.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's anything to be lost in trying it for a month. They say for a month, if you do see results, then maybe you could keep on going. If you don't see results, then you can go back to putting makeup on.
Exactly. There was another study, I think, a few weeks back about abstaining from drinking for a month, right? So,
if you do those two together,
you can have
then
perfect
your
skin.
your skin will be
그러네요.
shiny.
Abstain from something이 무엇을 안 한다는 뜻이잖아요. 우리가 얼마 전에 한 달 동안만 맥주를 끊어도 굉장히 간 기능도 개선이 되고 몸이 좋아진다라고 했는데 두 가지를 동시에 해보는 겁니다.
Try it.
한 달 동안 술을 안 마시고 화장도 안 해보면
알려주세요.
어떨까요? 이 연구는 아직 없는 것 같은데. 자, 표현 보도록 하겠습니다.
Okay.
수분,
Moisture, yes, moisture. So that's basically condensed or diffused liquid, especially water. If it's very humid outside, we can say, oh, there's a lot of moisture.
Right.
On our skin, if we feel like it's very, it's full of moisture, it means it looks very shiny, it looks very firm. So you can also say, if you're very thirsty, if you feel like you're depleted of water, you can say, you need some more moisture.
수분이 필요하다. You need some more moisture. 이렇게 얘기할 수도 있겠고요. 뭔가가 촉촉할 때 it's moist.
Yes.
이렇게 얘기를 합니다.
And also lotion is also called moisturizer because it
그러네요.
makes you more moist. Yes.
아, 맞다. 네.
Yeah.
피부를 이렇게 촉촉하게 해주는 것을 moisturizer라고 하죠. 그 moisture라는 단어가 그 안에 들어있고 물론 이제 유수분 밸런스라는 단어가 영어로 이렇게 딱히 있는 것 같진 않아요. 제가 좀 찾아보니까 뭐 oil and water levels 이런 표현도 있고 아니면 그냥 just have better protective barriers. 그래서 뭐 이렇게 다르게 표현을 할 수도 있지만요. 이런 표현도 같이 좀 알아두면 좋을 것 같고. 자, 그 다음에는 occurrence of something.
Occurrence. It's the fact or frequency of something happening, the fact of something existing or being found in a place or under a particular set of conditions. So basically, it's something that happens.
Right.
So for example, it's a rare occurrence to see hummingbirds in the wild.
하밍바드를 영어로 뭐라 그러죠? 이렇게 너무 예쁜 벌새. 그래요. 그러면은 이제 야생에서 벌새를 보는 것은 상당히 드문 일이다. 이렇게 얘기를 하셨는데 a rare occurrence. occurrence가 무언가 발생하는 것 이런 뜻이 있습니다. 자, 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. A new report suggests that going makeup free for a month can yield multiple benefits, including restoring the skin's oil and moisture balance, reducing wrinkles around the eyes, and minimizing the occurrence of acne.
An online influencer from the Czech Republic has astounded people by causing money to rain down, tossing a staggering sum of $1 million from a helicopter.
체코의 한 인플루언서가 헬리콥터에서 100만 달러, 우리 돈으로 약 13억 5천만 원이라는 엄청난 액수의 돈을 뿌려 사람들을 놀라게 하는 일이 있었습니다. 네, 저도 이 영상을 봤는데요. 어떤 들판에 사람들이 이렇게 모여 있어요. 그 위에서 헬리콥터가 그 처음에 서스펜스가 막 느껴지더라고요. 한 1분가량 그냥 다다다다다다 하면서 이 가방이 대롱대롱 달려
Is
있는데
it coming? Is it not? What is in there?
한 1분 동안 밑에 사람들도 이렇게 쳐다보면서 언제 열리는 거야. 그러다가 갑자기 뭔가가 탁 터지는데 하늘이 약간 뿌얘집니다. 그러면서 여기 돈 지폐들이 이렇게 쫙 비가 내리듯이.
It reminded me. 제가 얼마 전에 저희 딸 운동회를 갔었거든요. 근데 그 예전에 저희 어렸을 때 하던
청팀, 백팀
그렇죠.
해가지고 이렇게
그
주머니
주머니
던져서
던지기 그걸
하는
하더라고요.
거.
아직도.
우리 왜 이거 아는 거지? 외국에서 어린 시절을 보냈는데.
근데 그 모습이랑 되게 비슷했어요.
네.
막 던지니까 이게 터지니까 확 떨어지는데.
Like confetti.
야.
맞아요. 그렇습니다. 그래서 자, 이 정말 뭐 돈벼락을 맞았다고 우리식으로 말할 수 있겠지만 영어식으로는 money rain.
Oh yeah.
돈이
It's raining money.
비가 exactly. It's raining men이 아니고요. It's raining money. 비 내리듯이 돈이 내렸어요. What happened? 왜 그런 거예요?
Okay, so this whole project, it was done by an online influencer. His name is Kamil Bartoshek, but he goes by Kazma. And this project was to just pick one winner and give the $1 million to one winner. And it was a challenge for, he wanted people to participate in this project to decipher a code that was hidden in his movie called One Man Show the Movie. So it was supposed to go to that one winner, but apparently it was so difficult, no one got the right answer.
So this person is, I'm assuming, a wealthy, huge influencer in the Czech Republic, had a lot of money to give out and wanted to give it to one person. And so he gave out a quiz, but no one could answer the quiz. And so he thought, okay, well, I was going to give out the money anyway. I may as well try this.
Right. So for everyone who registered for that competition to find that hidden code in his movie, he sent out an email saying that he's going to appear at a certain place in a helicopter and drop that money, and they're free to, pick up all the money that they want. So he actually carried this out and he documented this entire event. He posted up on his Instagram, probably got a lot more followers from it. And he labeled it as the world's first real money rain. And he also said, $1 million it's been dropped from a helicopter in the Czech Republic, and it didn't cause any injuries or fatalities.
그렇죠. 부상자가 없었다. 이런 얘기까지 이제 덧붙였다고 합니다. 돈에 맞아서 뭐 다치거나 그런 사람 한 명도 없었고요. 요 이제 포스트를 올리면서 Money Rain, 세계 최초의 말로만 우리가 노래로만 듣는 게 아니라 진짜로 제가 돈이 하늘에서 쏟아지게 한번 만들어 봤습니다. 라고 하는 그런 이벤트를 펼쳤네요. 원래는 한 사람에게 이렇게 100만 달러 주려고 했는데 어려운 퀴즈를 낸 모양이에요. 아무도 맞추지 못해가지고 그러면 내가 좀 다른 방식으로 한번 주겠다 한 겁니다. 자, 표현 볼게요. People were astounded.
Yes, they
I'm
were
astounded.
I was astounded to hear this news. I'm also astounded these days every day with my puberty son. He seems to do things a lot differently now because he's hit that age, but it means to be shocked or greatly surprised. So for example, she was astounded by his bluntness.
그의 어떤 단호함, 단도직입적으로 말하는 방식에 많이 놀랐다. Astounded는요, 정말 많이 놀란 거예요. 좀 거의 충격을 받을 정도로.
네.
그 다음에는 toss.
Toss, yes, toss. We just it means to just throw something,
Yeah.
but without care. So it's easily, casually, just 여기 있어, kind of just throwing it at someone.
그렇죠. 이렇게 어디에다가 에임을 두고 던지는 게 아니라 그냥 던지는 거를 tossing한다라고 하죠. 네, 마치 하늘에서 돈을 이렇게 툭 한 100만 달러 정도만 이렇게 던진 느낌. 한번 살려서 헤드라인을 만들어봤습니다. 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. An online influencer from the Czech Republic has astounded people by causing money to rain down, tossing a staggering sum of $1 million from a helicopter. Well, those were our headlines. 자, 이제부터 헤드라인을 하나씩 자세히 살펴보겠습니다. This is headline number 1.
The government is expected to allocate approximately 27 trillion won for special loans targeting families with newborns, set to be implemented in January next year.
정부가 내년 1월 시행 예정인 신생아 특례 대출에 약 27조 원의 금액을 할당할 것으로 보입니다. Tell us about the plan.
Well, it's designed to try and overcome the declining birth rate. That's the reason for it.
Yeah.
So quickly, households with an annual income of 130 million won or less. So it's pretty much exactly 100,000 US dollars actually. So I was looking up the exchange rate this week. Or assets of around 500 million won or less, they're eligible for the loan. Okay. So if you make over 130 million as a household, you're not eligible for the loan. And interest rates will vary depending on the income level. So loan applicants, they can get a maximum of 500 million won. And interest rates, they say, are going to be between about 1.5% to just over 3% per year. And the house must cost less than 900 million won.
So basically they're saying we'll make it easier for you to buy a house if you have a baby.
If you have a newborn and you fit these requirements.
Exactly. Of course, if you're very well off, you may not need.
You wouldn't need it. You're
money.
probably already set up.
Right, exactly. 자, 그래요. 여러 가지 크라이테리아가 지금 있다고 설명을 해주셨고요. 거기에 더불어서 이제 제일 중요한 거는 신생아가 있을 경우에 거기에 다 충족이 되면은 이런 이제 신생아 특례 대출을 받을 수 있는 자격이 되겠죠. So it says here that the government is expected to allocate this money. The allocate is our first vocabulary.
So in this case, it means that they're setting this money aside for next year, or when they're planning their budget, of their total budget, that much was 27 trillion won will go to that. So you can think of allocating as either setting something aside, right? So you can allocate your time.
Yes.
And everyone does that. How do you allocate your time between family, between work, between resting, relaxing, mental health, all those things, right? We all allocate our time differently. You can talk about allocating resources. Countries have to allocate their resources.
Yeah.
Companies have to allocate resources. Money is the usual one, though. So, like when I used to work in the financial industry, we would look at a fund, a mutual fund, and how did the portfolio manager allocate the money?
Right.
So that's called asset allocation.
Could you use this for personal, budgeting, for example?
Yeah.
If, I'm going to allocate 10,000 won for snacks today.
Sure.
Something like that.
Yeah, anything. Or like you just how you allocate your income, right? Like, okay, I allocate 30% of my income to savings, for example.
Okay. 자, 이 allocate, A-L-L-O-C-A-T-E라는 동사는요. 얼마만큼의 돈을 이렇게 따로 할당한다 아니면 따로 이렇게 여기에 쓰겠다. 라고 하면서 지정을 하는 거죠. 돈뿐만 아니라 시간에 대해서도 쓸 수 있습니다. 그럴 때는 할애하다라는 뜻이 될 텐데 우리가 개인적으로도 내가 한 달에 이만큼 돈을 버는데 한 30% 정도는 저축을 해야 되겠다. 그러면 이제 따로 떼어두는 거잖아요. You're allocating 30% of your income for savings. 이렇게 표현을 할 수 있겠고.
If you're lucky.
Yes.
Yeah.
This
Best
is
case
example,
scenario. Yeah, right.
And as you said, it's very often used for companies as well.
Yeah. Companies, governments, everything.
Allocate라고 합니다. I'm going to allocate this money. I'm going to allocate this much time. 이렇게 쓰고요. The next expression is implement.
To implement means to put something into action. So normally we're implementing a policy, a new rule, a new law. Those are the things that get implemented.
Yeah. 무언가를 시행할 때 implement라고 하는데 여기서는 이제 이 신생아 특례 대출이 실제로 적용되는 것은 내년 1월부터 라고요 하고 있고요. 그러나 이제 거기에 얼마만큼의 돈이 들어갈 것인가 그것에 대한 이제 예측이 나온 것입니다. Let's have another read. I'm going to read this time. The government is expected to allocate approximately 27 trillion won for special loans targeting families with newborns, set to be implemented in January next year.
Seoul Metro has announced plans to remove seats from a select number of carriages on subway lines 4 and 7 starting next year in an effort to alleviate congestion during rush hour.
서울교통공사는 출퇴근 시간대의 혼잡도를 완화하기 위해 내년부터 서울 지하철 4호선과 7호선의 일부 객차에서 좌석을 없애는 방침을 발표했습니다. Okay, so this is interesting.
It
One
is.
or two carriages will have
Yeah.
no seats.
Right, yeah, something has to be done because it is. I just sometimes I'm on the subway and I just feel like we're just waiting for another disaster.
It's worse if you're short like me. I'm shorter than
Yeah.
you, so I'm always sort of
I understand, yeah, and
in between people.
We're just waiting for another. We're just waiting. I'm just waiting for it. Unfortunately, it's going to happen. And
Right.
in Korea, I always find when something bad happens, then it's like, oh, we should do something. But then when there's nothing bad happening, everything goes bad. Like listen to these lines. So these 4 lines, the congestion levels are so high right now, and they're even with getting rid of the seats, they're still going to be over 100. They still say after they remove the seats on line 4, they're still going to have a congestion level of 153%. So there's still way more than you're supposed to have on there anyways.
But the idea of not having seats in one or two
Yeah.
carriages basically means there's going to be more space for
More
people to
room.
stand, right?
Yeah, more space
More
to
people
stand.
can get in, basically.
Yeah, which I think is the problem. Like too many people cram in. Like it's 193% right now on line 4.
And it would go down to
164.
150%.
Yeah, which is which is still good, but I don't
Not
know.
enough, maybe.
Yeah, what are we doing here?
자, 그래요. 그러니까 객차에서 그 한두 개 정도의 객차에 아예 좌석을 없앨 계획이라고 합니다. 그렇게 해서 더 많은 사람들이 탈 수 있게끔 한다라는 얘기가 되겠죠. 그러면 한번 표현을 볼게요. 이렇게 지하철에 각각의 객차를 뭐라고 할까요? carriage 아니면 car라고 할 수도 있습니다. Okay, let's look at carriage.
Yeah, train car. You can
Train
call it.
car.
You can call it that as well. It's the individual sections of a train or the carriages.
Exactly. 자, 여러분 그래서 이제 각각의 요 칸, 각각의 객차 이거를 영어로는 train, car or carriage라고 한다는 거. C-A-R-R-I-A-G-E.
And on most trains here, I think on pretty much all of them, except maybe on line 9, there's 8 carriages.
Okay. And the aim is to alleviate congestion.
When you alleviate something, you make something that is bad less severe. So the easiest one is you have a headache, you take some medicine. The idea is that it alleviates your pain or your discomfort.
Right. 뭔가 완화한다라는 뜻입니다. Alleviating pain 그러면은 고통 어딘가 이렇게 아플 때 그 고통을 완화하는 거죠. 예를 들자면은 머리가 아파요. I have a headache. I need some what's the word for it? Just pills or just headache
I'm not
medication?
sure what word I'm allowed to use because
Okay.
foreigners
Okay.
always use a brand name.
I see. So I'll just say painkillers then.
Yeah.
Just,
Ibuprofen, maybe we can say paracetamol.
Yeah, that's what goes into
Yeah, right.
the medicine. 그래서 이제 그런 두통약을 먹게 되면은 어떻게 돼요? 두통이 좀 완화가 되죠. 고통이. 그래서 it alleviates the pain in my head. 이렇게 얘기할 수 있겠고요. alleviate가 이렇게 뭔가를 완화한다는 것인데 in this case we're saying alleviating congestion.
Right, to try and make congestion less severe.
Make it
Yeah.
just less
Why not
crowded.
you could also just not let that many people on the subway. There could be a limit when you see that last person who just squeezes on. They're the worst.
Okay. Here it is one more time. Seoul Metro has announced plans to remove seats from a select number of carriages on subway lines 4 and 7 starting next year in an effort to alleviate congestion during rush hour.
Chinese authorities issued their highest warnings for fog and haze this week as smog enveloped major cities in northern China, warning the public that visibility could drop to less than 50 meters.
중국 북부의 주요 도시들이 스모그로 뒤덮이자 중국 당국이 이번 주 최고 수준의 연무 경보를 발령하면서 가시거리가 50m 이하로 떨어질 수 있다고 경고했습니다. Oh dear, it looks like it's extremely hazy right now in certain parts of China.
And anyone who's been there has probably experienced a bit of this, but this even sounds like it's
worse,
especially in the north. My pronunciation of Chinese provinces and city names is never very good. Hubei, is that right?
Hebei.
Hebei. Okay, so the northern province of Hebei, they launched an anti-pollution emergency response. So this includes suspending flights, takeoffs and landings,
It's that bad.
temporary closing highways and suspending ferries.
Oh my goodness.
That's how bad it is there.
Oh.
And in Beijing, they've issued an orange alert, which is the country's second highest pollution warning. And Beijing said they would implement traffic control measures if the capital ends up activating their highest warning level. They're not there yet, but if they do, then they're gonna implement some measures as well.
Right. So the flights and the highways, that's already been done?
They're saying
you
that
say?
they can do that.
They can do that, I
Like
see.
I'm not sure if they have or haven't or how much they've done, but
Got it.
they have. They're able to implement it if they need to.
필요할 경우에는 결항뿐만 아니라 그다음에 고속도로도요. 일부 구간이 폐쇄될 수도 있다고 합니다. 그리고 뭐 페리도 지금 여러 가지로 운항이 되지 않을 수도 있다. 그 정도로 지금 가시거리가 굉장히 짧다라는 얘기인데요. Yeah, I mean, as you said, certain parts of China have been known for their not so clear air, but this time around it seems
Bit
like
worse
it's worse
even,
than
yeah.
normal.
Right, in certain areas.
Let's look at this expression here. It's a curious word, to envelop.
Envelop, to totally cover or surround something.
Like an envelope?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Like, sometimes, I'm sure anyone who lives near the Honggang on a day that's quite misty outside or a lot of fog, you might look out your window or drive past the Honggang and one bridge that you normally see, you can barely see it. It's like enveloped in mist, for example.
아, 그래요. 이게 뭔가 뒤덮이거나 감싼 느낌이네요.
Or mountains too. You can see that sometimes.
안개가 많이 끼면 뭐 산도 잘 안 보일 수도 있고 다리도 안 보일 수 있고 여러 가지로 그렇죠. 네, 가끔 이제 정말 심할 때는 여기 일산 고속도로에서 도로도 이렇게 잘 안 보일 때도 있어요. 그래서 이럴 때 the roads or the area is enveloped in fog,
And fog or mist.
mist 이렇게 얘기할 수도 있습니다.
Snow? Could be. It
Yeah?
could be, yeah.
눈에 뒤덮일 수도
Right?
있으니까 네, 그런 뜻이 되겠습니다. envelop, E-N-V-E-L-O-P. What about visibility?
Visibility, you can see vision, so it's the ability to see clearly. We talk about it outside, right? So in Canada, they talk about this a lot in the wintertime. When there's a big snowstorm, they'll talk about visibility. Is visibility. Usually they say poor visibility.
Right.
There will be very poor visibility. And when they, like in the headline here, they say could drop to less than 50 meters, that means in front of you.
Yeah.
You can only see 50 meters in front of you. And
Exactly.
Like I've driven before when you can only see a few meters in front of you because of the snow. It's terrifying. It's actually very, very scary. You know, when you see people working outside, they'll wear those bright yellow or orange vests.
Yeah.
Those are called like high visibility vests. So cars and people can see you at night.
Interesting. 그 야광 뭐라 그럴까요? 야광 material이 들어가 있는 조끼를 입고 이제 도로에서 뭔가 작업을 하시는 분들이나 이럴 때 그런 특수 복장 이런 것들을 하시잖아요. 근데 그거를 영어로 high vis라고 한답니다. 여기서 vis가 visibility의 약자인데 어두워도 잘 보이는 야광이 아니라 뭐라 그러지? 그 reflecting이 되는 거죠. 빛이 이렇게 딱 반사가 되는 그런 거를 high vis라고 하는데 visibility 자체가 여기서는 가시거리라는 뜻이고 보인다는 뜻이 있죠. 자, 가시거리가 짧다. 그럴 때 poor visibility라고 표현을 할 수도 있고 헤드라인을 다시 한번 보면서 이 단어 기억해보겠습니다. Chinese authorities issued their highest warnings for fog and haze this week as smog enveloped major cities in northern China, warning the public that visibility could drop to less than 50 meters. Fine.
The Italian news agency ANSA has reported that the country's anti-flooding system MOSA protected Venice from an exceptionally high tide that raised the sea level to almost 1.5 meters earlier this week.
이탈리아의 안사 통신은 이번 주 초 해수면이 거의 1.5m까지 상승하는 이례적인 만조 수위로 이탈리아 베네치아에 범람 위험이 있었으나 자국의 조수 차단벽 모세가 이를 막아냈다고 보도했습니다. Whew, that's relief.
Yeah,
it didn't flood.
I remember we talked about this a couple
We've
years
talked about
ago.
the system
Yeah, when there
before.
was a big flood system. And then I think a couple years ago, they didn't activate this system when they should have, or people thought they should have because there was a flood.
Right, exactly. 자, 영어로는 그 MOSE라고 하는 MOSE라고 하는
MICKEY MOUSE.
What? Mickey Mouse? 갑자기 where did that come from?
The way you said it, MOSE. I thought you were singing the Mickey Mouse song.
No, but okay. So it's an anti-flooding system, and it apparently worked this time.
Yeah, it did. Right, which is good. Right.
Yes. Do you want to tell us about the expression first of all? Why don't we do that?
Sure.
Anti-flooding.
If you see anti, then you know it's to oppose that. So the system is designed to protect the city against flooding.
Yeah.
It opposes flooding.
홍수를 방지한다는 뜻으로 anti-flooding이라고 했습니다. And as we just mentioned, it's very good news because the water level was extremely high.
Extremely, exceptionally, we can use all these words
Yeah.
interchangeably.
여기서는 exceptionally가 나왔지만 extremely랑 같은 뜻이고요. very랑 또 같은
But
뜻입니다.
exceptionally also has the sort of the nuance of being more than normal, right? So you might say you go to a restaurant all the time and it's quite good.
Yeah.
But then you go one day and the food was better than normal.
It was exceptional.
It was exceptional. Oh man, the food was exceptionally good today.
오늘 여기 식당 음식이 유난히 맛있네. 이럴 때 it was exceptional 아니면 지금 현재 시제로 the food is exceptional 이렇게 말할 수 있는데요. exceptionally가 이렇게 유난히 뭐뭐뭐 하다라는 뜻이 되겠습니다. So the water level was exceptionally high.
Higher than normal, right?
Yeah.
1.5 meters higher than normal.
And yet there was no flood, so that's very good.
No, there was no flood. So this system has 78 floodgates.
Okay.
And they rise from actually the floor of the lagoon.
Oh, wow.
Right. And then this has been in operation since 2020.
그래요. 2020년도부터 지금 사용을 하고 있고 이번에 아주 성공적으로 범람을 하지 않은 거죠. 이 덕분에 다시 읽어보겠습니다. The Italian news agency ANSA has reported that the country's anti-flooding system MOSA protected Venice from an exceptionally high tide that raised the sea level to almost 1.5 meters earlier this week. And here's our final headline.
Chairs custom made for King Charles's coronation in the UK have been auctioned at Christie's in London, raising over £32,000 or about 45 million won for charity.
영국 국왕 찰스 3세의 대관식용으로 맞춤 제작된 의자 4개가 자선기금 마련을 위해 런던 크리스티 경매에 매물로 나와 약 32,000파운드, 우리 돈으로 약 5,400만 원에 낙찰됐습니다. Okay, tell us more.
Yeah, quite interesting, and I think you're going to enjoy the list of people who may have sat in these chairs
Okay.
too. So they're oak chairs, and they were used for royal guests and dignitaries who sat at the front row of the coronation, which was in Westminster Abbey in May. Now, of these chairs, they're saying that there was 100 of them.
So-
Almost all of them will be sold eventually.
So to be clear, we're not talking about the actual coronation seats. We're talking about chairs that were
For the spectators.
for the spectators,
yes,
but
guests,
they were
I guess we should say.
exactly, and they were used during the
During the
coronation
coronation,
ceremony.
they
Yeah.
weren't the seats that are in Westminster Abbey. They were special chairs that were made and brought in, and now they're being auctioned off for charity. So when you buy these chairs, so eventually
Yep.
all of these 100 chairs will be auctioned off later on.
I see.
There's going to be auctions. 8 more chairs will be auctioned off in New York and Paris even this week. And there's also private sales, but buyers won't know which royals or which famous guests sat in their particular chair.
Oh.
So they're just going to know that someone famous sat in it. So the
Okay.
people that sat in it, Prince William, Catherine, Harry, Prince Edward, Sophie, Princess Anne, Prince Andrew, and among other people. So yeah.
그러니까 대관식 때 게스트들이 앉았던 커스텀 메이드 체어들입니다. 근데 정확히 어떤 뭐 왕자나 공주나 뭐 누가 앉았는지를 이렇게 정확하게 알 수는 없지만 그 중에 한 명이었을 가능성이 굉장히 높죠. 그런 커스텀 메이드 체어가 옥션에 상당히 높은 금액으로 낙찰이 됐다고 해요. Alright, so it has a huge meaning because in our generation, this was probably the only coronation or the first coronation that a lot of people experienced.
Sure.
So let's have a look at the expressions. The chairs were custom made.
Custom made, it means it's made exactly for this reason. So
Yeah.
many people get custom made suits or custom made clothes.
Sure.
You go in, you tell them what you want, the tailor measures you.
Right.
That's what it is.
맞아요. 자, 맞춤 제작된 무엇 할 때 custom made라고 합니다. 그래서 custom made suit는 맞춤 정장이 되겠고요. And we looked at the term seamstress before.
Okay.
I think the
Tailor.
male form would be maybe a seamster
tailor.
or a tailor. Yeah. And you actually go to the word for the shop that you would go to would be what was the word now? To get it altered. So the alteration shop maybe? Or,
Yeah,
or,
seamstress
getting
or-
altered is different, isn't
Yeah,
it?
he's getting altered, right? Yeah, but that's different. So when you
I
go
see,
to
I see.
like I got a custom made suit.
Okay.
Or they call them bespoke suits.
Okay,
So that's when
right.
they make it for you. They take your measurements, you show them the fabric and the color, and then they just make it for you.
Bespoke also means custom made.
Yeah. Yeah.
그래요. 자, 이 단어 비스포크라는 단어 많이 들어보셨을 것 같은데요. 브랜드 이름 아니고요. 실제로 이제 맞춤식이다라는 뜻이 있습니다. 그리고 지금 또 같이 언급이 된 게 수선, 옷을 수선할 때는 alter 한다고 하는데 그 이상이죠. 딱 맞춤식으로 custom made clothes or suits 이런 걸 만들 수가 있겠고 이번엔 의자예요. So in this case chairs and they've been sold for charity.
For charity, right.
Yeah.
So when something is for charity, it means the money, the proceeds will be given to charity. It's not for the person running, the seller is not
Right.
doing it for profit.
네. 수익금이 결국은 이제 자선을 위해서 사용이 된다라는 뜻인데요. For charity, 자선을 목적으로 하고 있다. 수익금은 proceeds라고 합니다. 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. 4 chairs custom made for King Charles's coronation in the UK have been auctioned at Christie's in London, raising over £32,000 or about 54 million won for charity. And those